Hello and welcome to our third virtual tasting. My name's Aaron Icanian. I'm the general manager here at the Vin Bin. We have, of course, 4 locations: Hopkinton, Southborough, Marlborough West, and here where I am right now at Marlborough Main Street. Before we get started with our tasting today, what I really want to do is thank all of our customers. You guys have been really amazing through this time. We've been going through all this hardship with the pandemic, and you guys have really supported us, and we really appreciate it, and I want to continue to thank you. And I think it seems like we're starting to pull out of this a little bit, and things are starting to open up, and I see more cars on the road, and I know I had one really happy thing for me this week was when I was in Hopkinton. I saw that our neighbors at Supercuts were open. I've never been more excited to see Supercuts open in my life, but just to see some familiar faces in the parking lot, some cars filling up the spaces, that was really great, and it made me feel really good. So we want to, again, thank you guys. If you've been paying attention at all to these tastings or to our emails and newsletters and Facebook posts, you do know we have a lot of really fun things going on. I'll take a little time here just to tell you about some of the fun stuff that's going on at the Vin Bin before we get into eating and drinking. We are doing a lot of food specials here in the cafe in Marlborough. We start those off on Tuesdays with our chicken parm night, which is really popular. Wednesdays, my wife Amanda creates some amazing grilled cheese specials. Thursdays, when we have the weather permitting, it's burger night out on the grill in the front, and Mike and Hannah come up with some really crazy burger toppings and burger options that I think are phenomenal. And if you saw this week, Chef Mike decided he was going to do a lobster roll special on Friday. Now, a lot of these are pre-order only, so these are the kind of things that when you see the email come in, you really want to make sure you jump up and take advantage, because these are things they know to sell. I know these lobster rolls sold out right away, so keep your eye on those emails. Keep your eye on all these specials that come out. When it comes to beer and wine, we are loading up each week. We've got we loaded up on our rosé section last week, so when you come into the stores, you'll notice it's Boffo with the pink wines. We've got craft beers coming in like every single day, new options from local breweries, and we're really ramping up. We've seen a huge response. We are doing home deliveries still. If you are looking for those, it's a $50 minimum for free delivery in Hopkinton, Marlborough, Southborough, and Hudson, basically all of our local towns. If you live outside of those towns, we'll deliver to you too. It might be a little fee. It might be a fee, and we may not be able to get there same day, but we'll get it to you. Just let us know. You can email us at info@thevinbin if you're looking to put together a delivery. So that's what we have going on. Like I said, thank you for the continued support. We really, really appreciate it, and we hope you continue to keep bringing that to us, and we'll continue trying to give you all the stuff you need. So what we're going to do here today is we're kind of going through what we call a French picnic. And the reason that we are pre-recording this and posting this on Saturday morning is that we want you to be able to take this video with you on your picnic. Now, whether that's going to be out on your backyard, on your front patio, in your living room on the floor, or however you want to do it, we want you to do this at your leisure and have some fun with it. Now, there's a lot of product here. There's a lot of food and wine. So, again, I want to preface this by saying you're not under any type of pressure to eat or drink all of this product in one sitting. Take your time with it. Have fun. It's supposed to be easy going. If you want to open all 3 bottles, open all 3 bottles. If you want to open one of them, just open one. And you can come back to this video as needed. You can just let it go in the background while you watch TV. It's fine. However you want to do this and have fun is however you should do it. So as you open your bag, here's what you'll find in it. So we have 3 different wines today. We have the Ferraton Côte de Rhone Blanc. We have the Chapoutier Billahout Rosé, and then we have the one red, which is the Pierre Cabernet Franc. And then for your food items, you have your Osao Irati cheese. You have your classic brie. You've got some classic little water wafer crackers. We have our house favorite Divina fig jam. And we have a scary hunk of pate. Don't be afraid. We'll get to this later. Okay? That's one of my favorite things in the store. So, you lay them all out. These are you can attack them any way you want. We're not necessarily, the idea of this picnic is not necessarily to pair one wine with one cheese or one cracker with one item. This is to sort of create an entire experience, an entire meal. So we're going to go through them one by one, but you are by no means restricted to have one wine with one item. I don't want you to feel like you have to do that. So what we're going to start with is the Ferraton Côte de Rhône Blanc. Okay, we first got introduced to this winery a few years back. Actually, Rick Lombardi, the owner of the Vinbin, visited these guys over in France, and they're in the Côte de Rhône, which is probably our if we had our favorite region here at the Vinbin, it would be the Rhône Valley, for a lot of reasons, but one is that there's tremendous value, and this is no different. Now, if you've come into our stores, if you've drank Côte de Rhône wines, you've probably almost always had reds. I would say a white Côte de Rhône is something that most people watching this video have maybe never had, or if you've had it, you've only maybe had one. They're kind of underutilized. They're tremendous wines, but they're kind of a difficult, from my experience, they're kind of a difficult selling point because they don't have grapes that most people recognize. So, for instance, this one is 60% Grenache Blanc and 40% Claret. Now, Grenache Blanc is kind of, that confuses people because a lot of people know the Grenache grape as a red grape, but there is a white varietal, and that's what we're going to see here. This is a winery that was started in 1946 by a man named Jean Ferraton, and as they've passed this down and as it's going to change hands throughout the years, this is a label that has their hands in production in just about every major growing region in the Rhône Valley, from northern and southern. They do stand behind their wines to make them biodynamically. What that basically means is that this entire vineyard space that they use, it sort of it functions as a whole, sort of as itself. So they use either self-sustaining minerals, soils, even sometimes wild animals to tend the grass and the bushes to make everything sort of natural as much as they can. They don't want to manipulate anything. So when you look at this wine, right off the bat, it's got a really very pretty golden color. It's very almost has a rich texture to it, almost a honeyed sort of viscous texture. So it's got some weight and body to it. And even on the nose, I get a little bit of a honey, and I get some apple, but one of the key notes of apple in this is not green apple. I think of a golden delicious apple. It's sort of a waxier style. It's got a little more of a richer texture to it. So you get that golden apple skin. Yeah, very nice. And on the palate, actually on the palate, more of a bite and a little more of a zip and tang, a little more citrus and a lot more explosive. A really pleasing wine. It's something that you can really sip and sip and attack a lot. When I drink wine like this, for main dishes, I would look at, especially in summertime, I'd look at grilled fish or grilled chicken or something, if you're cooking out a lighter flavored option. But it's a really mouth-filling wine. It's sort of, actually now as I'm sipping on it, it's evolving more of my palate. I'm getting more of that honey, that floral, that really peachy stone fruit note. And it's a really nice, that's a really complex bottle of white wine for, around $15 a bottle. Now, when I look at our cheese board and our picnic here, I think the first food item I would go for with this would be that Ossau Arati. That's your harder cheese here, okay? And when I look at Ossau, I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for this cheese because this was actually one of the first cheeses when I first started working here at the Vinbin that I got into. One of the first cheeses beyond cheddar and Gouda and maybe Brie that you could branch out to. And it's kind of a fun one because it's not overly aggressive, but it's got some substance to it, and it's got kind of a cool backstory. So this is 100% sheep's milk, and this is thought to really be one of the first cheeses ever made. There's a story that from the Greeks with this cheese that the Greek god Apollo had a son named Aristi, and he was a shepherd who turned all the milk from his sheep into this cheese. So you can actually look, there's actually recipes for this cheese that date back 3,000 years, which like predates the English alphabet. So this is a seriously ancient cheese. Now, it's a fun one to take someone if someone's used to eating cheddar, Gouda, some kind of more milder, approachable cheeses. This is a good one to go to because it can give you a little bit of a funk. It can have some of that stinky feet, that earthy aroma, and that pungency to it. But when you take a bite of it, and when you experience eating it, it's actually it's actually very creamy and very soft, and on the palate, it's just faintly gamey, and adds just a little bit more of a meatiness, but really it's creamy and buttery, and almost has a caramelly toasted caramel note to it. It's really tasty. It's one of those cheeses that we have in the shop that, as I've worked here for a long time and gone on to try, probably thousands of cheeses, it's one that I probably don't eat that much, but when I eat it, like right now, taking a bite of it, I'm reminded of how tasty it is. There's a lot of depth to it. It's really nice. You can find, this is a very younger Osao. This is really creamy and soft, but you can find versions of this cheese that are very hard and almost a grating style cheese. But a really nice, elegant cheese, something you can pair with a lot of different things. I might go with the white here, but I also would check it out with a red wine. I think that would work really well. Okay, so now what we're going to go on to is the Billerhout Rosé. Okay, Rosé, as we've talked about in previous tastings, super hot right now. It's very, very popular. You can find them in restaurants, bars. Every liquor store has a big rosé selection. But you got to really, I think, you have to be careful with them because there's so many of them out there. I think they're losing their way a little bit. They're starting to see rosés out in the market that are too full-bodied and too rich and a little too sweet. So we like to really focus on these drier styles, as we're going to see here. But this is from a winemaker named Michel Chapoutier. He's about as close to a rock star in the winemaking world as it gets. This is a guy who's got his hand in like 500,000 cases of wine per year, from regions all throughout France to Australia to Alsace to even to Portugal. He's a really interesting guy. One thing as I was researching these wines and as I've known his wines in the past, he's really passionate about not necessarily focusing on vintage year to year. He's trying to just make the best wine he can with what he's given at that time, what the soil's giving him, what the weather's giving him. So he's not, if he has what some winemakers might call a bad vintage, he doesn't necessarily think about it like that. He thinks of it as just he made the best wine he could with what the earth gave him. And I kind of admire that because he tells a story about having a wine in their family cellars that was from an off vintage. I think it was in 1956, and he opened it 30 years later, and it should have been vinegar, but it was actually turned out to be delicious. And he said, how can you? It's almost like when having a child be born and telling them in the first year of their birth that they're never going to amount to anything. It's like you don't know that until the wine grows. But like I said, all the fruit from this one comes from the Languedoc-Roussillon region, which we talked about in one of our previous tastings. Is kind of one of the growing stars of the fine wine world. It's actually the largest by acre wine production region in the world. 700,000 acres of wine production. That's enormous, and it's really because it's so big. They were known for making a lot of maybe not so great wines, I would call plonk or jug wines, but we're starting to see some really beautiful wines coming out of there, particularly in the whites and the rosés, like this one. This is actually one of our top moving rosés year in, year out. It's probably the one I would hand to basically anybody that comes to the store and wants to experience what a classic French rosé should taste like. This is one I would give them, and I would also be totally comfortable handing it to anybody who's a rosé drinker and someone who thinks who loves rosé. I would also hand them this because I think it stands up to just about anything, even in a higher price point. Like I said, this is only around that $15 price point. It's a blend of Grenache and Cinsault, sort of a proprietary blend. It's a little different every single year. As if you don't know this, rosés are made from red grapes. The color comes from skin contact, so that's where you get that pinkish hue, and also that more structure. So I tell a lot of people that I think most rosés are a little more akin to red wines than white wines because they have that skin contact and they have grip and tannin, which makes them, I think, a little more versatile than white wine. But with this one, like I said, not fruity at all. This is really more of a steely, minerally wine. You do get some strawberry and melon in the nose for sure, especially from the Grenache, which is a lusher, more fruit-forward grape. But on the palate, while it has a little fruit, it's really, to me, I get more acidity, more spice, and more steely mineral notes, which I really enjoy, and which I think is something that makes it a little bit more food friendly when you talk about red meat or grilled foods. It's a really different style, but finishes classic with that acidity, which is what you want from rosé, because as the weather warms up, like it's been lately, and the mugginess, especially today, you need wine that can have some bite to it and almost makes you want to have another sip. And it really makes your mouth water. And this one is a great option. If you guys, I'd drink this all summer long. When I look at cheese for rosé, again, I think that first Osao Rate would be great. But for me, when I drink rosé, I look for softer cheeses, and that's where we're going to look at our classic brie. Okay. Now, if you come to our stores a lot, you've probably run into our triple cream and our double cream brie. They're two of our most popular cheeses. This is not that, okay? Those are great cheeses, but they're milder, they're more buttery and creamy and milky. This is more traditional. So this cheese has some funk to it, for sure. It's got some mustiness, it's got some feet to it, some like stinky feet, and it's got some power behind it. It's got some stink. So when you eat classic brie, what you should taste and what you'll get from this is more of a earthy, mushroomy, and almost, this is like a very weird descriptor, but I remember Rick told me this one time when we were eating a really nice brie once. He said, when you eat the paste of this cheese, that inside, it should almost have a buttered clam type note to it, which is really odd to think about. But then I thought in my head of spending summers going up to like Hampton Beach and going to Brown's and having steamers and dipping them in drawn butter, and the flavors totally matched in my head. So I get a little bit of that from this. Now, because this is a little funkier cheese, and it's got a little more of a rustic nature to it, that's where we use another one of the items in our basket here, which is like magic stuff, and that's your fig jam, your Divina fig jam. Now, this is a must-have item for any cheese board. It's got just the right amount of sweetness and that really nice, deep, mature, figgy, raisiny sort of notes to it. So when you have cheese that's got more of a funkiness to it that you need to kind of mellow out, you take a little of this sweet fig jam, right, and you put it on a cracker, on one of these little thin wafer crackers, which, by the way, when I use crackers and cheese, I don't like flavored crackers, and I don't like really substantial crackers. I want something that's thin like this, okay? Because this is just a vessel for cheese. This is just something that's going to get it from my plate to my mouth, basically. But when you use this fig jam on a cheese, it just creates a balance. It just creates this balance, and this fig jam is something that you can carry from just about every meal of the day. You can have this with breakfast, peanut butter and jelly. I mean, just use it any place you'd use jelly. lunch, we use it in the cafe on our farmer sandwich with goat cheese and arugula, and even in dinner. I've been known to bring this to my family's Thanksgiving and use it in place of cranberry sauce. I'm not a big cranberry sauce guy, but this just adds that right level of sweetness. And figs are not overly sweet. This is like just medium. Almost has a honeyed flavor to it, but it can just make a total difference when you're eating a cheese board. I would recommend this on just about, I mean, almost any cheese we sell. You can put fig on it. It'd be great in the Osao, the first cheese we had for sure. But a really versatile item. That's something you want to use a lot. Okay, so we have that in the store. I would say 99.9% of the time since I've ever worked here, this is something that we have in the store. So we're going on to our last wine here, guys, and this is the Pierre Cabernet Franc. Okay, this is our red. Now, actually, I was really excited to show this wine. I've had my eye on this wine for a little over a year now. We were first shown this by one of our distributors a year or so ago, and I have a soft spot for Cabernet Franc. I really enjoy it, but it's difficult because not a lot of people know Cabernet Franc. They're not, and especially when it says it on the label Cabernet Franc, it can be intimidating because not people are very familiar with it. So we're always a little hesitant to bring them in. But this just turned out to be a really great opportunity to use this wine. So if you aren't sort of familiar with Cabernet Franc, this is it's a classic French grape. It's one of the 5 blending grapes of Bordeaux. So this is Cab Franc's a grape you've had Cab Franc. You may not know it, but you've had it, and very, very difficult to make 100% Cab Franc. It can be very sort of green. It has a lot of green flavor sometimes, and when you have 100% of it, it's very hard to make it drinkable. We talked about the movie Sideways in our last tasting when we talked about Merlot, and he has some harsh words for Cab Franc in that movie as well. One of the wine tastings, he says he has a hard time finding anything that's drinkable, and he's right. Especially when you're going for a more affordable price point like this is. I've tasted many Cab Francs in the $30, $40, $50 range that are outstanding, but it's very difficult under $20. Now, this is from a little place called Carcassonne, and you can actually see it on the front of the label. This is a historical site in France. It's a small city that's sort of surrounded by this medieval wall that's been there for this city has history dating back almost 2,500 years, over 2,500 years, and this wall is still standing. And they've actually proposed tearing it down many times over the years, but it's such a historic thing now. They keep renovating it as much as they can. But very, very small city, really beautiful. If you ever look up pictures or get a chance to go there, it's something to see. So with this Cabernet Franc, it's a perfect sort of summer red. It's got this lighter weight to it. It's very aromatic. It's got almost a bright wild strawberry, earthy, spicy aroma to it. And as you'll get with Cab Franc, that's super classic, is a green aroma, almost like the skin of a green pepper, or even like the skin of a jalapeno. Not that hot sort of peppery spice, but the skin of a fresh jalapeno, if you can smell it. Sometimes almost get like a tomato leaf if you grow tomatoes in your garden, and when you're harvesting tomatoes and you sort of smell the vine and the leaves on them, you get a lot of that too, which is a really unique smell. That's a hard smell to place, but once you sort of lock onto it, it does resonate. But it's a sort of a summer weight wine, not super heavy. This is actually something I might consider even chilling a little bit this time of year, maybe for 15 minutes or so. Really great. Tons of brightness to it, tons of peppery spice, a lot of that juicy red berry fruit. And classically with Cabernet Franc, a lot of acid, a lot of on the finish of the sip, it's bright. It really explodes, and you'll see that actually with these 3 wines. And a lot of the wines we recommend people in the summer will have that acidity. We like that. Find it almost refreshing, even in a red wine. When we look at our cheese board or our picnic board here, I would use this with the osalarati for sure. But what we're going to use it for today is with this pate from Alexian. Now, don't be scared of this, okay? I know pate can be intimidating to a lot of people. I've seen countless employees at our store over the years get nervous about trying pate, okay? This is not scary. If you just think about this in, the basic ingredients that are in it, pork and spices, okay? If you just think about it like that, it's not scary. Now, it's got some interesting texture to it. This is a country pate, so it's a lot coarser. It's got more of a meatiness to it and more of a sturdier texture. Sometimes you'll see them that are more fine ground, or even mousses that are creamier, and I think those are a little harder to get into. But again, simplify it in your mind. It's basically just pork and some spices. They add some pork fat to it, and yeah, there's a little liver in it too. But don't be scared, okay? Liver's good for you. There's a lot of iron in it, and if you are scared of trying this, we're gonna go back to our fig jam here, guys. This is magic stuff. One of the great ways to enjoy pate, right, is to just take a little piece of it, and take something sweet like a jam, like a fig jam or any type of jam, and add that to it, and take a bite. And to me, the flavors I get out of this pate are very mild. They're not overly strong. You do get a little bit of that irony minerality from the liver, but it's not too much. It's fatty. It's rich. The spices are mild and warm, and it's got a really nice texture to it. But when you add a little sweetness to it with the fig jam, I almost equate it to when I eat like a big breakfast, and I got bacon and sausage, and you get a little syrup on your bacon and your sausage, and that's just I just love that sweet and salty combo, and that's what I'm thinking about here. It's also really nice to do it with a mustard or something spicy, and that's also something really well to pair it with. But don't be afraid of the pate, guys. Really, I think once you try it and start to eat it, you'll really like it. Okay, so that's our picnic today, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this. Again, I'm really thankful that people have responded to our virtual tastings. This is our third one. I hope we can continue to do more of them. We had over 80 orders for this one as of today is Thursday, and I hope we'll get a few more. And the response has been great. As long as you guys keep responding to them, we're going to keep doing them, and I have some plans down the road to bring in some special guests, some interviews, some of our friends throughout the industry, and looking in some different beverages to feature as well. So if you guys keep supporting these and keep asking for them, we're going to keep doing them. But until next time, I want to thank you guys again for coming in. Thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.